I'm really glad about this. We're going to do a series of these. I've been working sort of another South Carolinian. I'm kind of the hardest working man in show business, like James Brown. I feel like these days when I started the podcast, it's just eating my lunch, and I'm having a great time with the opportunity with this book. I know this is shameless plug, right? I mean, I didn't know how else to do this. I talked to some marketing people. Hey, Matt Rouse, how are you doing?
Great. How are you, Rick? Good to
You
see you,
may.
McLean. Been a while. Good to see
Hey,
you.
Matt, good to see you too, man.
Thank you.
I've got my firstborn on here today, and it's just exciting. I'm out there in my coaching world, and I get a lot of opportunity to hear people's kind of heartache and how they've messed up. Hey, just real quick before we get Katy on, I'm just glad you're joining, and I'm just going to be shameless for about 5 or 6 of these over the fall. Again, anybody had a weird likability moment? In other words, you walked in, thought you were likable, and somebody really humbled you really quickly, or you've had a place where you misplayed your influence. And in other words, you looked around and you really didn't have any. A real quick story before I introduce Katy. Anybody have one? Make sure you're unmuted.
I've got one, Rick.
Dr. Timothy, go ahead.
Yeah, I was at my church, actually, where your sister now attends. She wasn't a church member nor involved in this situation, but I've been there for about 3 months, and man, knocked it out of the park with a Christmas program. Walked in the office on the following Monday and had that anonymous letter. We got rid of the last guy, and we can get rid of you if you don't start doing X, Y, and Z kind of thing. And so yeah, it was like I thought I was really likable and did a really great job, and then all of a sudden I'm getting these letters, and that was younger then and kind of took it a little more personal than I probably would nowadays, and I just file it nowadays in the file 13.
Well, I hear you, and we've all been there. Probably, maybe not quite that shocking, but that's the reason I wrote the book. It's really about every kind of situation we could all run into. So, Katy, I promised you're the only one here that's actually working for a living. Although Gary Shaw, I went to grad school with, he is down in New Orleans. He's probably on a generator. It's amazing. He's a wild man. A shameless LSU fan, and I got 2 on. Matt Rouse actually went to LSU, and then I've got one South Carolina Gamecock here. McLean, I know, is a Georgia because he's a Forbus, and Katy is just Bama. It just makes me sick to know how much of a Bama fan she is. But we're rocking and rolling this weekend with college football. So, Katy, I'm gonna give you a chance because you're the only one working for a living to jump back on a Zoom call where you're actually earning money. The rest of us are hanging. So make sure you unmute. Was there an excerpt from the book or just anything, layout of the book or the chapter? I don't care what it is. You've got it, unless it's bad, and then I'll mute you. Okay.
You're probably going to mute me.
All right.
I love chapter 2 because I don't necessarily think of myself as an inspirational person, but what chapter 2 did for me was it told me I'm a mom of 3. I work from home. I don't ever go anywhere. I'm not a big traveler. I don't have an interesting life to most people. I'm just a normal everyday person. But when you told me to reflect on the people in my life that were inspirations to me, none of them were big livers, right? They were the teacher that gave me candy at church, or just these people that showed little bits of kindness and made you feel like you were an important person, no matter who you were or what you did. That's what I aspire to be. And chapter 2 was a reaffirmation for me that you don't have to be somebody that goes out and travels the world. You can be the teacher that hands candy out at church and still be an inspiration and a leader and show other people how to live your life and be genuine. So I try to do that wherever I'm at. I think that's a good quality for a leader, to be likable.
Oh, I appreciate that. I reminisced. McLean, my oldest here, wrote my foreword, which was incredibly emotional when I read it. But all of that to say, I started rocking through my life and and that was a fun chapter to write. So, Katy, have you got one without necessarily giving their name that just really kind of rocked your world and said, you know what, that's made me who I am? yeah, just if you do that, and then I'll release you from this men's world here.
There are a couple. Most of them are from church. Those are the people that, take you in no matter who you are and treat you like you're special. But my grandmother is probably one of the most inspirational people that I have ever met in my life. Her name is Helen Clement. She is everyone's grandmother. Everybody. She doesn't care who you are. Every Christmas, she would invite people that were not blood family. And we have a huge family. There's 50 to 60 of us every single Christmas that are blood related. But then there's an additional, 15 to 20 people that are not. And we don't know where they come from. She just says, if you don't have anywhere to go to Christmas, then you come, join us. And she's a leader in the way that she makes everybody feel welcome. And there's no one is ousted from, her life. She will include you no matter what you do. She's a big forgiver, and she loves to have people around, and she will mentor all of us to say how we should treat people and invite people to join the group, right?
Yeah,
So
and just a word, this girl we're talking to right now, guys, unbelievable singer. And if I had any more guts than I typically do, I would have asked her to sing something for us. She did a song we did last Memorial Day. She came all the way back from South Carolina to do a Dixie Chicks song for me, Traveling Soldier. We featured Vietnam War, and they just killed it, man. And so I'll give you a chance to plug the Cardinal in Winfield, Alabama before you get off, and then you can sign off. So just she's hammering me to stop in Winfield, Alabama on Interstate 22. And we stopped, Nancy and I stopped there some, Hampton Inn, but I need you to push this, because I saw you two boys, you put on a video the other day. Do that and I'll release you.
So one of my favorite memories from Winfield, Alabama, if you've never been, it's the home of Mule Day. I grew up in a really small town with 2 red lights and a high school. That's basically all we had. But the Cardinal Drive-In, everybody has to stop there when they go to Winfield, Alabama. It is, you get a strawberry Mountain Dew and some nacho cheese fries.
Oh, that is, I love it. That's health food. I
walked in the snow to get that barefoot.
You? Well, my daddy told me that same story.
Did he?
Yeah.
He must be from a small town too. We didn't have cars, so we had to.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. So thank you for being here and not saying anything about Roll Tide and all of that. And you are just you're refreshing. Look, the guys that I'm looking at on the screen here, is such a blessing to have you. And thank you for reading the book. And I really appreciate you taking time. Okay.
Well, and I'd like to plug you too, Rick, because you are another one of my inspirations. You're not my grandmother, but
thank you.
Everybody that I talk to about church and choir, I say, if all of them could be like Rick, churches around the world would have choirs that would, sing from the heart. I really do appreciate the leadership that you've shown. And
we miss you. If I could figure out how to get you back over here every weekend, we would do it. Bye. Tell your boss thank you for letting you have this time with us. Okay.
Thank you.
I'll send you something. Bye.
Bye.
Guys, thank you. There's 12 chapters in the book, and I got into the encouragement part, and I had to write another chapter. The thing was getting too long. But Dr. Tim Dayton's one of my favorite guys in the world. He's a man he's just got so many talents. He is now a wonderful business entrepreneur over in Easley, South Carolina, owns his own franchise, a great franchise. But Tim, tell me anything out of the book that was inspirational to you, or something, just an excerpt, anything that you've got there.
There was a lot of inspirational things, a lot of things that I needed to reflect on. There was a list, and I cannot, of course, my book's digital, so I can't quote a page number because that changes depending on how bad my eyesight is. But you had a list about things that people who are likable do. And the 4 that were challenging to me, some more than others, was they put their phones away. And that is a terrible habit that most of us are in, as you well pointed out. They use positive body language. I can tell you my posture most of the time is poor. And unfortunately, that's just a habit that's grown over 50 years now. They greet people by name. I'm terrible with names. I loved what you pointed out in that part where you talked about don't overdo it like a salesman.
Yeah.
And that I've been there on the receiving end of that. And then they smile. And I was the lady that was just leaving when we got online. She there was 2 COVID positive tests in her toddler child's classroom, so she's immediately having to go, and they're shutting the school down and all of that kind of stuff. But she and I were talking earlier, and I was sharing this list with her, and she said, "You are one of the nicest people I've ever met." And I said, "Well, that's very nice. Thank you for saying that." She said, "But you don't smile enough." And I thought, well, I try to be more intentional with that. Another thing is the self-analysis about inspiration. Who am I inspiring and who is inspiring me? I know who has inspired me. I kind of wonder who is inspiring me now. And then the other thing that I took is a friend of both of ours, talking about intentional encouragement. And this would be one of those people who was an inspiration to me, and that's Larry Black. And just watching him interact with other people, not even me, but with others, and just looking at them, smiling at them, as you mentioned, and then just saying, "Hey, Rick, can I count on you to take care of that for me?" And it just, the way he leads people and inspires them to follow through with what he asks them to do is pretty doggone amazing. So those are some of the things that I have highlighted among others that I have on my list here.
Well, Tim, I appreciate it. And again, we've got all kind of talented people on here, different walks of life, but I see you've got a new band over there in South Carolina. Is that a Harry Connick kind of band?
No, it's a beach band. I'm doing some pop and beach stuff. And it's funny that you would say it's a new band. Rick, the band originally started 1 month after I was born. In January of 1971, they started. And in 1991, I joined this band and played with them for about 2 years. And back then we were playing about 120 nights a year.
Wow.
I left the band when I started teaching because I couldn't do Friday nights and play with them. And about a year, right just before COVID hit, they needed a trumpet player, and they called me, and so I joined back up with them. And then we had the COVID sabbatical, and now we're kind of kicking back up again. So it's kind of funny that you would mention that it's a new band. Yeah.
Well, it's new to me. I'm a follower. I appreciate your talent and just your entrepreneurial, and I think you smile plenty, Tim. I mean, you can overdo it, right? Gary's been a longtime friend. I think we figured out we've known each other about 40 years or so, but Gary, and I know, so Gary is down in the throat of the storm, and he's a registered nurse. He's shifted over some years back, has had a great career down there. And just give us an excerpt from the book. What are you thinking?
I wrote some of this down because it was amazing to me, and because I'm just a tad bit technical challenged sometimes. However, the words of encouragement chapter really spoke to me, especially because I have a tattoo on my chest, if you want to see it, that says, I don't
know about that.
That says words of affirmation are my love language.
Yeah. And
so encouragement is the deal you can get me to do anything with. And so the be an encourager, section spoke to me about the power of an encouraging word, especially the part about planning your words of encouragement. And I don't think people think about that. I think they think it's one of those things that, well, it's just not me. Well, it's nothing that, I'm used to doing. Well, okay. Well, let's work on it. We can develop that skill.
Have any of you guys, and I appreciate that, Gary. I don't know what my favorite chapter, I took a risk with writing the chapter on be fun. I mean, many of us have fallen flat. I did a gig one time with a big group, and I thought I would start my week of training, or 3 days of training, with trying to do some stand-up comedy. And man, I don't know if it could have been any worse. And the first 2, I thought, man, if I don't get them with these, I'm dead meat. And I went on 5 or 6 one-liner jokes, and it just, nothing happened. But being fun, planning to be fun, and to be and plan to be an encourager, I don't think is all that difficult if we just sit down and kind of preemptively think about it, you
Yes, sir.
know. And so, you know, I don't remember if I said it in this chapter, Gary. I love encouragement too. I mean, I love it. I don't need it. I don't have to check anything else off in my life, but I love a person that can just say something, just something encouraging. And it doesn't matter, you know, if your socks match or you know, you're a great guy. It doesn't matter what it is. It does make us feel good. And Larry Black is one of those guys, by the way. Tim and Matt, we both know him. But Gary, I appreciate you saying something about it. Is anything else in that chapter that you felt like you could apply like immediately in your work? I know
Sure.
you deal with a lot of diversity and a lot of crisis.
You wrote two things after that I wrote down to ponder and meditate on, and it was learned skill. Okay, it's a learned skill. And the other thing, and this captured my imagination, the phrase thoughtful substance. I haven't really heard that, thoughtful substance, before. Other things like it, but not those two words together. And
Thoughtful, yeah, substance, yeah. You know, it is really hard. I took so much philosophy stuff in school. You know, it gets pretty existential when you think about your being. What are you being in front of people? And that's the whole premise of the book. Can we work on our being? It is kind of existential and a little nebulous, but I think we can have thoughtful substance. In other words, don't be a person that's just always high-fiving, always staying kind of keeping it shallow. But, you know, what is something you could add to somebody's life and create some substance? So I appreciate you catching that little sentence there. And I appreciate you. And we're now McLean's on here, and McLean, I just thought, you know, maybe this is last book I write. I don't know. And I asked him to write the foreword. If you hadn't read any of the book, read the foreword. He's a great writer. I'm a utilitarian writer, and I really appreciated it. So McLean, you got anything you can add? McLean's out in Northwest Arkansas, and he is so far a Bulldogs fan here in Georgia. So, and I don't think you're pulling for Razorbacks, are you?
No, we're not. We're holding the line here. No, you know, I mentioned this in the forward. I think that I said this is probably his accidental autobiography, which I think it probably might be, especially if it's the last one. But I'm in an industry field where it can be tempting to be disingenuous, and so the chapter on being authentic probably was the most meaningful to me. I think it was chapter 4. One of the things he writes in there was, although everyone withholds some of themselves, authentic leadership begins with an open, honest, and transparent style of living. Of course, that applies to lots of fields, but I certainly think it applies to this. And, you know, we talk about college football, and we've all had these athletes that have been on our teams that their skill level didn't transfer to the next level. When you hear about people that are system quarterbacks. And I think one of the things that's unique about likability is it probably is the most universally transferable leadership skill. And you've probably, if you're like me, you've been with people who had success in leadership at one organization and then go somewhere else and it did not transfer. And they find themselves being a system leader. I think this is what's so unique about likability is it transfers everywhere. I went from metropolitan Atlanta to Greenwood, Arkansas, a town of about 9,000 people. And there's certain things that just don't transfer, but likability does, and being real, being authentic does. So that was probably the most meaningful chapter for me, especially in my area of leadership.
Well, I appreciate that. And, you know, when you think about family, and McLean said some things, I'm glad he didn't air out everything about the Forbus family in his forward. There's a bunch of stuff that he was less than transparent on. Some of our travels and hunting trips to North Dakota and Arkansas for duck hunting. It was a little bit like Animal House in a 30-foot camper. But I appreciate that. It's honoring, you know, and you're in an industry as a senior pastor that is very hard industry. It's very hard. And people can eat you up and spit you out, and you have to give them back no matter what. And I appreciate that. And you said something that I don't even know that I don't think I even put it in the book. I may have, but that it is transferable. And that set my premise of the book, and we'll be almost finished here. I've been around all kind of leaders. I mean, we've had political leaders in our country. We've had military leaders. We've had historic leaders. My whole library behind me, you can't see all of it. I've got so many biographies back here. I love biographies. There's so much there. And I've read, I don't know how many hundreds of leadership books and listened to podcasts, but I do think we can create a continuum that sits nicely in the middle between authoritarianism and top-down leadership and just being a pushover. And that's the thing I've discovered as a coach now, almost 20 years, is that when I look back, sometimes it's an introvert that has the greatest influence in an organization. They don't say much, but when they say something, it's likable, it's forthright, sometimes it's respectable. And then we all know that categorical life of the party leader that's trying to gregariously grab everybody. But I think the book says that it's somewhere related in the middle. And to be able to take it from Metro Atlanta to Greenwood, Arkansas, that is the key to this book, I think. Or to take it from LSU to somewhere else, or to take it into a new industry like Tim's done, Gary's done, Matt's done. All of us have transferred skills, and the catalyst and the conduit for that, to me, is being able to be likable, so people will want to hear you and you create influence. So thank you. Is any last thing you want to say? I'm not going to try to sell the book. The book is on Amazon, of course, in my personal website, but I just really appreciate all of you being on this first launch. I'm going to be having these over the next few weeks. So thank you.